Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I'm your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars every single day since August 2019. Today we are talking about just taking a little bit of a step back on, I guess you'd say, a micro scale, and looking at the fact that the Jaguars should be counting their blessings every single day that the 2026 coaching cycle rages on. It really feels like the well has run dry in terms of the offensive mastermind kind of candidates. Very much feels like Ben Johnson and Liam Coen were the last two, who had not already been nabbed up. And I'm sure there'll be more. That's how football goes. It's just, there's no genius play caller anybody's trying to hire this year. There's absolutely impressive guys, but as I've said before, I think probably the most impressive coaches this year are defensive guys. That's not normally who the NFL has gone after in recent years. And I very much so don't believe that just because, you're a defensive coach that you're at a disadvantage. Obviously, there are some things you have to factor in, like the fact that if you have a really, really impressive offensive coordinator, then he can potentially leave for a head coaching job in the future. And you don't want that to happen, especially in the event that you have a young quarterback, like the Raiders are about to have, like the Titans have, so on and so forth. So, ultimately, the Jaguars, I'm not going to say like they had this all planned and they foresaw, what the coaching class would look like or anything like that. But they had perfect timing. The Jaguars had excellent timing on, and I know the timing kind of worked itself out, but of pulling the parachute on the Doug Peterson era and moving on from it when they did. You could tell that Jaguars owner Shad Khan was not happy with the way that the Jaguars were consistently coached last year. He called them the most predictable team on both sides of the ball. And said that coaching he thought was the biggest area they needed to improve. Obviously, when he fired Doug Peterson and not Trent Baalke, at the time, Trent wouldn't leave for another couple of weeks. It was clear that he deemed coaching the biggest issue facing the team. He obviously identified that correctly and identified Liam Coen. We told you guys during the during the coaching cycle process. And we reported that Liam had hit a home run in his first interview and was seen as the favorite for the job. He was never like, okay, he's our backup plan to Ben Johnson for the Jaguars. That was never the case. I've consistently reported that it was 1A and 1B. And that's not even saying Ben Johnson's 1A. Maybe Liam's 1A. I just know that they held them both in extremely high regard. And they wanted to come out of that coaching cycle with one of them. They obviously interviewed a multitude of other guys, and you've seen other guys get hired since, so on and so forth. The Jaguars absolutely nailed the Liam Coen hire. And right now, as of this recording, 25% of the NFL is looking for a head coach and praying that they can be as good as Liam Coen. An entire quarter of the league. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's two whole divisions full. And I know there are some extenuating circumstances with some of these firings. Like Baltimore had to let go. Well, they didn't have to, obviously, but they felt like they had to after 18 seasons with John Harbaugh. The Dolphins parted ways with Mike McDaniel on Thursday after seemingly weighing the decision for a couple of days. One way or another, a really big chunk of the NFL needs a head coach right now. And they would love for that head coach to be Liam Coen, but they can't have him. The Jaguars went and got their guy. They did it at the perfect time. They didn't. Can you imagine if the Jaguars had said, hey, we've gone 9-8 in Doug's first 2 seasons. This is his first losing season. They had a lot of injuries at quarterback. Run it back again for a year. Can you imagine what position the Jaguars would be in right now? And Liam Coen, if he doesn't get a job last cycle, then add just the Jaguars to the mix. It's 9 jobs. You think he wouldn't want to consider coaching Lamar Jackson in Baltimore? So the timing was absolutely pristine by the Jaguars. They were able to capitalize after they identified the guy that they wanted. They did a great job of doing that, of finding a guy who they firmly believed could become that upper echelon level of coach. And that's what Cohen's been for the Jaguars this year. The job Coen and his staff have done. And I firmly believe that, part of being a coach is you have to get credit for your staff. You're the one who opted to hire them. I mean, this staff has been able to simply get career years out of so many players. Travis Etienne, career year. Parker Washington, Brendan Strange, Trevor Lawrence, Cole Van Lannon, Anton Harrison. You can argue Ezra Cleveland. Robert Hainsey. Jacoby Myers has been fantastic. Really the only guy this year who I think, only 2 guys this year who have gone below expectations on the offensive side of the ball. You can say 3, actually. Probably Walker Little, Brian Thomas, and De'Ami Brown. And I don't even think Walker Little really to that extent, but just because obviously started the season as the starter. I still think he's a starting left tackle in football, even with the, kind of rougher year that he's had. He's played a lot more good football than bad in Jacksonville. But Brian Thomas, only 2 touchdowns, I believe, in the regular season. Just didn't have close to the impact that he had as a rookie. You could tell before they got Jacoby Myers that they were just desperately trying to pigeonhole Brian in a role where he could, kind of be their alpha male receiver and, be the focal point of their passing game. But there's just some aspects of his game that didn't really mesh with that, going over the middle, in breakers, etc. All the stuff that Jacoby Myers has been fantastic at. He's allowed Brian Thomas to expand, his part in the offense that he really thrives in, which is being an explosive downfield threat. He's been used more downfield. He's been used less over the middle of the field since the Jaguars have, traded for Myers. And then, obviously, De'Ami Brown starts the year as a starter. Right now, he's, receiver number 5? Behind, obviously, Jacoby and Parker Washington and Brian Thomas Jr. and Tim Patrick. So there's just so many guys on the offensive side of the ball have been so good for the Jaguars this year and have improved so much that I don't think that you can deny the impact that Liam Coen has had. And it is because of that impact that Liam and the Jaguars are in the postseason right now. And are set to play in one of the biggest home games in franchise history. I know we've said that over and over again in recent weeks. It's been true every time, and it's true because the stakes get raised when you're playing good football. And that's what the Jaguars have done this year, going 13-4. If the Jaguars had not hired Liam Coen last year, they had hired Robert Saleh last year, they kept Doug Peterson, waited until this year, they would have been in trouble. The Liam Coen hire set the Jaguars on an entirely new trajectory. And it's not just him, obviously. It's James Gladstone. It's Tony Bazzelli. It's Anthony Campanile. It's Grant Udinski. It's Trevor Lawrence improving as much as he has. It's all those players I mentioned before and the hard work that they've put in this year. But Liam Coen is what really set it off for the Jaguars. And I think this coaching cycle and some of the names that you're seeing floated as head coach options makes it clear that the Jaguars hit an absolute home run with Liam Coen.